Welcome to the DNA Health Investigation Podcast. I'm Lisa Witherow, and I'm here because we've been given generic health advice that doesn't address our unique needs for far too long. We all deserve to know the facts about our health instead of just hoping for the best. This podcast will help end the guesswork and offer you a view of what you need to start treating your biology like the forensic evidence that it is. No more trends and trial and error. Instead, you get to know all about the facts within your body. It's time to stop searching for answers outside of ourselves and start uncovering the truth within. If you want more than standard diagnostics and temporary fixes, let's dive into the DNA evidence-based approach to better health. As a quick start to taking control of your health, it really is about thinking, and I know that sounds a lot like mindset, and it does start with mindset for sure. You want to be able to believe that you can influence your health in a positive way. If you don't feel that you can, you're not going to try. So that's the start of it. Once you get beyond the mindset and you're realizing that you do have control over your health and that you can do things differently in order to contribute to the health outcomes that you're looking for, then you look at how am I thinking about health? How am I actually approaching the topics that are most important to me for my health? And I say that because I personally have been influenced my whole life by the media, by my family, by experiences. We all have those to draw upon. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, I've had a terrible example, terrible, from my mom dying when she was 29 and I was 3, to seeing my grandmother struggling with her quality of health and accepting that things were just the way they were and would go on medications as she was directed by her physician. My father died when he was 53, and I had a friend who I was living with his family, and he was 36 years old and had a heart attack and died. Now, I will say, it seemed like there was no warning. His father died of an enlarged heart a few years before he died. So I want all of us to be considering our pool of information to be resources, not determinant indicators. It's not determining how we're going to live or how we're going to die. But what we need to do is call upon the information that we have access to and figure out how we need to do things either the same or different. It really is important to navigate our health and the decisions that we make that will lead to our health based on what our goals are. I had someone this week come to me and say that she has very low energy. And she just attributes it to having children and having a busy lifestyle, being on her feet a lot, and she just expects it now. We're going to go back to mindset. When we do believe that that's just the way that it is, are we likely to do something about it to make changes? Probably not. So that's where I would start, is let's change the mindset and let's look at what we do have control over and appreciate that every day we are making decisions that either contribute or distract us from our health goals. The second is then, what decisions are we making every day to create the health that we want? If it's difficult to understand, I'm always here to talk through it with you. On the second Thursday of every month, I do open office hours where we all come in as a group if you have questions. I also have other sessions, one-on-one or group sessions that you can join. You can always contact me about those. The important thing is to realize when we're looking at something like energy, we're given opportunities to learn from our bodies. The symptoms are lessons. Our body is telling us something that we need to learn from. What we want to be able to do is recognize what is supporting health, in this case energy, and what's detracting from it. And everyone is different. When we don't know our DNA, we can just go from our experiences and what we know are to be the major contributors. It could be, do we have adequate sleep? Are we feeling rested when we wake up? If not, what is our sleep schedule? What is our preparation for sleep? What are we doing to give ourselves every advantage of that deep REM sleep? And if we aren't feeling rested, how can we improve it? Are we staying up too late? Are we watching TV up until the time we go to bed? Are we on our phone or computer? If so, let's use blue blocking glasses. Let's do the things that are supporting us. What I really want everyone to realize is it's all very unique to our situation. I don't want to give generalized guidance because I don't want people to think, oh, well, that didn't work, so now nothing's going to help. We have so many different opportunities to contribute to our health every day and in different ways. I want to give you all inspiration. It is DNA health investigation. It is a strategy that I impart. So it is based on your individual genes, your individual situation. I have clients who haven't done their genetics, and I will go through what they can learn from their bodies, but then why the genes can be very helpful. I've been asked, is it ever the case where you find genetics are defeating? No, I've never, ever seen that. And here's why. The way that mainstream practitioners look at genes is so short-sighted. It is looking at what are your genes, here are the risk factors, have a nice day. I'm not in that game because there's no way you can tell me that a human being with the complexity that we have within our systems, when you think about all of the different organs working together, compensating for one another when something goes wrong, giving all of the genes that play into how we function, there's no way we can reduce it down to one gene or even a compilation of 4 or 5 genes and say, if they are at this status, then you're out of luck. Or that you have 40% greater chance that you're going to get this disease, so have a nice day. No, because guess what? When it comes to, we'll go back to energy. Yes, B12 is a big factor. When we find that you have B12 genes that are compromised, we identify which form of B12 is most beneficial for that individual. How is the transporter, the TCN2 gene, functioning? If it is not functioning adequately, we need to give you a cofactor to help escort that B12 that is the ideal type of B12 for you, to escort that then into the cells, and you then have a cofactor that you are carrying it in and you've got the help that you need. And having inadequate levels of B12 and folate and ultimately methionine, because that's what those two are needed for, and then being able to manage your homocysteine, that's all in the same cycle. All of those things, when we can optimize all of that, you are less likely to have cardiac issues. You are less likely to have energy issues. You are more likely to have a better immune function, to better detoxify, to repair your own DNA properly and heal properly. It is imperative that we know these things about ourselves. And yet, that is not the focus when you look at mainstream assessment of genealogy, we'll say. I mean, they're looking at, from a genealogy perspective, they're looking at where did you come from? From a genetics perspective, they're looking more at what is your risk factor. And then I look at more nutrigenomics and epigenetics to really understand how your body functions And the epigenetics part is, what is your lifestyle, your diet, and your environment doing to support or undermine your genes? How can we use all of our resources outside of ourselves to support our bodies in an optimal way? We want to have a good experience while we're here. And we want to be able to contribute and do the things that we want to do in life. If we don't have our health, we can't do those things. We can't enjoy ourselves to the fullest extent. We can't perform at the level that we want to perform, whether it's athletic performance or whether it's walking with balance, being able to go for a hike, having energy, being able to breathe deeply and fully and expel the air so that we can take that next breath. There are so many things that we need to do optimally in order to feel our best. And it's critical that we understand we have power over that it's not just a foregone conclusion based on our genes, whether we're going to falter or whether we're going to succeed. When it comes to energy, yes, B12 is important. B12 needs the assistance of folate. We need to make sure we have enough vitamin D. We want to make sure that our mood and our energy are supported in balance, because if we're not feeling great, if we're depressed, if we have a poor sense of mood and perspective, our energy will wane. So there are many things that we want to do when it comes to supporting our bodies, recognizing what role our nutrition has, as well as our movement and our hydration, the very essence of supplying our body with the raw materials that it needs. Minerals are absolutely critical. And so often we are lacking in minerals and the balance of minerals, because we may have, when we talk about sodium, people think that they need to avoid salt, but what we need to do is not have just that sodium that's extracted from the mineral compound. We want to have the more complex form of sodium with all the other minerals to help balance everything. And yes, there are certain genes that indicate that we are more sensitive to salt, but most people I see are not. When it comes to high blood pressure and things like that, salt is very often not a risk factor. But in general, that's what people are told. Just cut down on your salt and your blood pressure will come down. Being able to understand elevated cortisol, elevated cholesterol, elevated blood pressure, when we have issues with weight gain, anxiety, depression, sleep issues, energy issues, all of those things are not going to give you just one thing to fix or one thing to consider. As an example, with anxiety, it's really important to recognize that it could come from any source. I just saw an explanation that if you just take creatine, then you won't have anxiety anymore. Well, I have a big problem with that, because if a person has high anxiety because of histamine, which is common, when histamine elevates, it causes this disruption internally where the body recognizes something is amiss. It's causing inflammation, it's causing an excitatory response, and the messaging to the brain is there's something wrong. Messaging in the body is increase inflammation. We're trying to fight against something. So the histamine may be elevated because of external factors like allergens in the environment or even in the food. It could be because of just high histamine foods that are producing more histamine in the gut. But when we have elevated histamine, it can cause a lot of symptoms like anxiety, OCD, even tics. The body is responding and outwardly showing that there's something wrong. When we think about a generalized recommendation like taking creatine for anxiety, it is clearly missing its teeth in terms of digging into what we really need to be digging into. And I'm not saying everyone has high histamine. That's the point. It could be that we're not converting glutamate to GABA. And GABA is the calming neurotransmitter. Glutamate is excitatory. So it's just going to push all of the excitatory transmitters right into the brain, and then the brain is feeling anxious. It's important to recognize the root cause. And that's where looking at DNA is really giving you the source code. What is my body's capability of handling the histamine? What is my body's ability to convert glutamate to GABA? What is my body's ability to manage my methionine pathway or methylation? When you look at methylation, which goes to the B12, the folate, the homocysteine, and the methionine. When we look at all of that, those are only three things, three very separate things that can cause anxiety. When we are diagnosed with anxiety, I'm not saying that you don't have it. I'm not saying that that doesn't exist. It absolutely does. But it exists for different reasons in different people. And that's where we need to go with this. This is where we need to feel empowered and know that we can learn so much about our source code by looking at our DNA. What does our body do well? What does our body do inadequately, inefficiently, and why? When we look at lab testing, it's very valuable. It tells us how far down the stream are we? Are we way off course, or it's only going to take a little tweaking to fix things? But it doesn't tell us why we're off course. It doesn't tell us what we really need in order to get back on course. That's what our DNA tells us. When we learn it for ourselves, it gives us hints for what we can tell our children, what we can tell them to consider, because they would have at least half of our genetics. Again, it's important to recognize that our function is not reliant typically on just one gene or one SNP. There is a compilation that is relied upon for certain functionality. And we're looking at all the different symptoms that we could have. Let's say that we've been diagnosed with a particular condition. And like with my parents, they both had cancer. So if I had gone to a genetic counselor when I was younger, they would have told me what my risk factors are for certain cancers. When you look at cancer, it's important for you to also appreciate that detoxification is critical. We want to look at detoxification genes as well and know what our capability is, not just what our risk factors are, but what is our body's ability to escort the used up and converted estrogens and other hormones out of the system. So we're looking at CYP genes. The UGT genes we want to look at for how is our body producing and processing glutathione. Then there are the glutathione genes. How are we producing the glutathione? Then we're using the glutathione. We're recycling the glutathione. It's a whole big production. And that's why I say it's not just one gene. When I have individuals who come to me and say that they've been tested for the BRCA gene, and that is going to be breast cancer, estrogen-based cancers. So when we look at that, okay, that's good to know. But I want to know about so much more. I want to know how we are escorting estrogen out of the system, especially if we're doing any kind of hormone replacement therapies, even the bioidentical. We want to make sure that our bodies are capable of escorting those out of the system that aren't being used. And then, of course, if we're drinking from plastic bottles, if we're exposed to any kind of the phthalates that can be xenoestrogen contributors, we want to make sure that our bodies are capable of managing all of that. We also want to know how we are absorbing our nutrients, which nutrients are serving us best when it comes to our methylation process, because that is DNA replication, it is our healing process, it's involved in so much. It's even involved in our hormone production. So there are a lot of layers, and what I love to share with people is these layers are what give us our dynamic capability of recovering and rejuvenating and taking control, knowing what we need extra of, what we need less of, knowing how we can really thrive and improve as we age. We can recognize, oh my gosh, I've had this problem all my life, or I've suddenly started having this problem. Why is that? Is it because I am aging, or is it because I've done something all my life and it's now finally taken a toll? It's really giving us options to take better care of ourselves knowingly. And when we have that knowledge, it's powerful. When we use it, when we actually leverage it and say, this is worth doing, when we have things in our lives that we want to do better, when we want to feel better, when we have people that we want to inspire. And now we're seeing our kids and our grandchildren being influenced by the same old talk of just take this and you'll be fine. Or as you get older, you can worry about it later. Okay, but why not address it now? Why not know what our bodies need and be able to be proactive and preventative? Nobody wants to just wait and see if they get Alzheimer's. Nobody wants to wait and see if they develop cancer or if they end up having debilitating arthritis. Nobody wants to wait for that. And yet you have information in your body that when you spit into a tube, it can tell you. It can literally tell you what your capability is and what your body really needs to avoid certain challenges. It can be subtle nuances when it comes to things like sleep issues, when it comes to energy, anxiety, depression, cholesterol, all of those things. But what we're looking at is, what does your body tell you you need most that is going to support you? One example for cholesterol I will give you. First of all, cholesterol isn't all bad. It actually supports the body in amazing ways. We need to appreciate what it does for our bodies. And if we have lipoprotein A that's elevated, that's when we need to balance some things out, because that can be very inflammatory. It can be very damaging, and we want to make sure that we have that under control. But when we're looking at elevated cholesterol as it is standardized right now, we need to appreciate that our brains use cholesterol, our bodies use cholesterol, our immune function requires cholesterol. We need to have a certain level of it in order to function properly, and if we don't, that's when we can definitely impose things like dementia. We also need to recognize that the liver is affected by these medications that people are taking. The liver is very important when it comes to processing cholesterol, processing our medications, but also when we are looking at the root cause of cholesterol issues. If indeed it is presenting an issue, we need to appreciate how we are either undermining or supporting the liver. If we don't have our DNA information yet, but we want to learn about a particular issue and what our real causes and support could be, then we start with getting to know our bodies, really reflecting, documenting, understanding when the issue is more severe or when it is a lot better. When we are able to do that, then I recommend moving on to looking at your DNA, because now we know where to look, and we aren't just looking at all the genes. We're looking at, okay, here I have this issue. I've realized that I feel better when I eat a particular food or when I avoid a particular activity. If you have any questions or any topics that you want me to address, I will be having the next open office hours where you can ask me questions directly the second Thursday of the month. That will be at 3 p.m. And if you have questions and you can't make it, you can always share those questions and you can watch the replay. I hope this was helpful for you today. And if you have any questions, let me know. and I hope you have a great rest of the week. Thank you. Thanks so much for joining me for this DNA Health Investigation episode. If you would like to hear more, please like and subscribe so you can get occasional notifications of new information. You're also welcome to join my community on Facebook, watch my videos on YouTube, and read my latest articles on Substack. The links can be found in the show notes. Thanks again, and I hope to see you next time.